Hey, welcome. It's Friday. This is, according to me, the best part of the week. If you are catching us live, come in the comments and say hello that you're watching us live. If we haven't met before, where have you been? Where have you been all my life? My name is Sonal Behel. I'm a career strategist, and we get together, and we have been getting together 90 weeks. I hope you're well. I hope you've had a good week. I've had a slightly challenging week. I've been down with a pretty debilitating cold and I've been in bed pretty much the whole week. So today, taking a shower, getting dressed, like actually washing my face, I would highly recommend it. So if anyone watching here, you know who you are. If you've just been down the dumps, washing your face, getting dressed, head to toe, no pajama pants, I'm talking to you, does wonders for just mindset, internal psychology. Anyway, we had a brilliant session last week and we spoke with Malaika Simmons on all things imposter syndrome. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend you do so. And next week, I'm going to have the fantastic Brendan Kumarasamy and we're going to talk about interview questions and what are good and what are great interview questions. So you want to catch that. But before we do that, today we have a smashing topic with a smashing presenter. Like when it comes to personality and tests, I can't think of anyone who has a bigger personality than the one and only Diana Alt. And she's joining us early in the morning. Very warm welcome, Diana. Firstly, good morning. You're such a sport. It's 7 in the morning. You look like you're going to give a TED talk.
Oh, I do not have a square circle carpet underneath me today, but I'll pretend I do. We'll be going
Such
for
a
longer than 18 minutes though, so.
yeah. No, very warm welcome to Supercharged Fridays and excited to talk to you about all things personality.
I am really excited about this as well. It's such an interesting topic because one of the biggest things I hear people complain about in my community is why do I have to take all these dumb tests? Because there's two categories that drive me crazy. I work with a lot of tech people. And so the first
Yeah.
one is why am I taking all these coding tests and whatnot,
Yeah.
all these skills tests? They're like, even the people at Google how to code. So why
Yeah.
do I have to take all this? And then the other one is understanding this whole personality assessment bit.
Understanding themselves. And we're going to get into the latter just so our audience knows. And I see comments coming in. I'm going to give you guys a quick shout out. But before we do that, I also want to say today we're going to get into it. This is such a deep topic. We're going to get into it, I don't know, maybe 30, 40, 45 minutes. We cannot go as deep as we would like, right? And we're not going to get into the academic, pedantic terminologies. That is not the idea. So if this is what you're here for, you can keep scrolling. I'm sorry to disappoint you because we're going to see things from the point of view of a coach and a hiring manager. So according to me, more street, knowledge, practical knowledge that you need to know. And Little Bird tells me, Diana, at one point or another, we might have a little bit of swearing going on, which is perfectly fine. But I'm warning our audience, if you have kids watching, first of all, why would kids watch a LinkedIn Live on personality tests? That would be so weird. But if you have kids watching, I'm going to give you guys a warning if I can to cover the ears or just put on headphones, or just deal with it. There are worse things in the world. And if you get offended, you're welcome to
It's
scroll on as well.
lessons are gone with life.
Yeah. So, Diana, before we get started, tell us who you are and what are you about?
What am I about? So I am about helping people become the boss of their career so they can find ideal work, be valued, and get paid. Full stop. My basic philosophy and finding in all these years that I've been coaching after a 20 plus year long career in tech is that people act like they let their careers happen to them. And even the most skilled high achievers will feel completely powerless. And I think we all have way more power than we give
Yes.
ourselves credit for in managing our career and our life.
Yes. Fantastic. So, um, it sounds like you want to help people get back in the driver's seat and
Mhm.
remind them that they always have control, even though it
Yes.
doesn't feel like it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
A person
exactly.
right after my own heart, which is why you and I get along. And by the way, fun fact, in case anyone's wondering, where do these cool guests come from? They come from this little place called LinkedIn Comments.
Yes.
And if you're like in the comments right now, first of all, say hi to each other. Network. This is the closest thing we have to networking in 2021. And take advantage of it. And I see friends here already. You're from all over the world. Erica, Kevin, Risto, Nigel. Akshay, Barbara. Barbara's laughing for some reason. Thank you. Happy to put a smile, Noel. Happy to put a smile to your face. And also, I see questions in here, Salim. I'm sorry. We're not going to be looking at like one-on-one like questions about career today. That is something I do in office hours. If it's a question about personality tests, definitely feel free to drop them. So,
Mhm.
Diana, I'm going to hit you up with questions. And before I do that, I want to remind our lovely people you can follow Diana on LinkedIn. She's got a website as well. And check out her work, dianaalt.com. So, Diana, what the heck is a personality test? Like, I'm putting on my best Indian accent. What the heck is a personality test? Like, what is it supposed to be used for? This is a loaded one, so I already apologize. What is it supposed to be used for, and not supposed to be used for? And this is such a loaded one. We're going to do it in parts. Don't worry. And
Sure.
there's something called behavioral assessment and psychometric testing. Like, I can understand why a lot of us are just like overwhelmed. So
Right.
help us get underwhelmed and break it down for us.
We'll just get to whelmed. We don't need to be over or
Let's
under.
yeah, why don't we say
Good.
whelmed? Why do we say
Whelmed.
over and
Let's
under?
try that. So, personality tests are basically assessments that are created by psychologists and testing experts to kind of try to understand an individual's personality factors, like what motivates them, what kind of behaviors they are going to lean into in certain situations, and things like that. It's used a lot in the hiring and in the HR,
Yes.
corporate world, to try to
Yes.
help people figure out how to work together, and if someone is going to fit within a team or within a different role or within a different department, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. And we can unpack more of that later, but it's basically just a mode of trying to capture a little bit of the essence of a person and understand them up front, so that can be used in building teams or making teams run more effectively.
Yeah.
um, Hopefully, I
Okay.
mean,
Got it. Yeah. Got it. Got it. Help people understand each other a little bit, and also
and themselves, understand themselves.
and themselves first help understand themselves, and then also how things work in a team and how to best fit, because fit is a dangerous word as well, and I'm
Ugh, I could rant
very
about it.
careful about that. And I before you continue, I saw a very interesting question. Saket, we're going to get into the candidate side of personality tests. Don't worry, this is the question that I have for Diana. And I saw a very interesting comment as well about an MBTI nut. I know people who love it, I know people who don't like it. I'm going to get your opinions on that. And how is it different from a behavioral assessment or a psychometric? Because a lot of people think it's the same thing. Are they the same
Yeah, they're
thing?
not the
And how
same
are they
thing.
different?
So I'm gonna hit psychometric first, and this one I actually feel a little. I'm not I'm not an IO psychologist or anything like that. I'm talking about this from a coach perspective, as we said before. But I actually used to work in the assessment business in product management, specifically for a company that did nursing education related assessments to help people pass their boards. A psychometric assessment is an assessment that's designed to basically test for things that are very difficult to know, like core knowledge of things like critical thinking or certain subject matter knowledge, things like that. So, psychometrics is basically the science of testing and measuring knowledge. And examples of psychometric tests that many people, well, I don't know in other countries, but in the US, we have the ACT and the SAT that are college aptitude tests. Those are examples of psychometric
You'll
tests.
have equivalent of that in every country. You'll have GMAT as well. You'll have,
Yeah,
in India, you have the management aptitude test. So you're saying that's a psychometric test?
it is a psychometric test.
Because
It
that
is
means
a
there is a right and a wrong answer.
Yes. And then the difference on behaviors and personality tests is most personality assessments actually give some sort of typing. So
Hmm.
when you think about Myers-Briggs,
Yes.
MBTI, if someone says I'm an INFJ, that's their type. That is the bucket that you get put in after taking the personality test. If you're into Enneagram, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, those are the types. So the different personality tests have different models, and that's a couple of examples. Behavior tests are a little bit different, and behavior tests are designed to understand and possibly predict behaviors that people are going to engage in within the workplace. So it's not going to come up with that one label like an INFJ or a number. It's going to basically have a readout of what people are likely to do in certain categories. And I'm less familiar with behavioral assessments than I am with some of the other ones, but behavioral assessments are also often used by psychologists that are treating people that have mental health conditions that they're trying to, assessing, are we progressing in our treatments and things like that, in addition to trying to predict behavior in the workplace.
Yeah, and also, do you know some names, Dana, that you can think of behavioral assessments?
There's one that I kept seeing because this is one like I said, this is an area that I'm not
Mm.
as familiar with. I believe that Colby is considered
Mhm.
a behavioral assessment because the Colby is one that I have a consulting client I work with, and he uses that in his team, and it sort of looks for instinct, like what is the
Yeah.
instinctual behavior that you have.
And preferences, natural preferences that you
Mhm.
have in terms of
Yeah,
how do you make decisions. So
yeah,
another one I can think of is SHL, which I used for many years with my internal HR team. I'm guessing also, Diana, so with behavioral assessments, I mean, I know we said we're not going to get too much into it, but the point is they're less about having the right or the wrong answer,
yes,
and more about understanding this person, firstly, in a vacuum, and
yes,
then what they would be like in a certain team environment.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, I agree
Okay.
with that assessment.
All right. Fantastic. And interesting. I'm a big fan of personality tests and there's just tools after having done many of them. Yeah, we're going to get into this, Siddharth. That's a very good point here about specifically strength based. So let's talk about that and understanding ourselves a little better. But I saw the question here, so I want to ask you: when someone's actively looking for a job, they get hit up with these sort of laundry list of things they have to do, right? Before or after interviews. Usually it's before interviews.
Right.
Which are the most common ones that you have seen that they need to take
The,
do?
there's several of them, and it kind of depends on what sort of sector you're going into. I see a lot of people use DISC and MBTI in larger companies, and there's also
Even at the time of interviews, Diana?
mm, M. I've seen DISC used then. Now, is that a good use of DISC? I don't know. I'm not certified in DISC.
No,
Another
I mean, I find that very
it,
amusing because I remember being told when I was in one company, because there's something called insights discovery, and you see four colors:
mhm,
green, blue, yellow, and red. And I was told in that company, we do not use these behavioral or personality tests as an elimination criteria during job interviews. However, at the time of my interviews with that company, I was asked by everyone what my insights discovery color was. And I honestly kept thinking in my head, why does it matter? Like, why does it matter?
oh, that's
Clearly, it is
get to
used.
that rant. We'll get to that rant
It
sometime.
is so random, man. But
Yeah, there's a lot
anyway,
of ways that people kind of misunderstand how to use this stuff. The biggest one that I've seen up and coming with a lot of L&D and HR professionals, and been reading up on it, and I think it's pretty cool. I want to learn about it. Is the predictive index, and so that one is more on the behavioral side too. So I know a few people that are certified in PI, and I've started hearing about that one. So that's a real common one I've heard about lately.
okay, okay. It's interesting, Kevin, that you remember because I think I'm ENTJ, but I never remember because I remember the colors, and that's very quick about insights
Yeah.
discovery. But by Myers Briggs, I know people are a fan, but I never remember, is it EN or is it the T or is it the F when
Yeah.
it comes to that?
And I have for me in Myers-Briggs, one of the things I've noticed is as we get more mature, we learn to flex. Like part of maturity is flexing to the situation.
Yes.
And for me, I'm so close to the middle on Myers-Briggs that like depending on what side of the bed I woke up on that day, I might actually end up testing quite a bit differently. So
I mean, we're complicated like we're complicated beings
yeah,
and things change.
yes.
Interesting. I have this question here, but from Saket. Saket, I'm not sure we're going to be able to answer because remember we said we're not going to get into academic side of things. Do you follow, Diana? Where would you put emergenetics in terms of
I have no
psychometrics.
idea. I don't know that one.
Sorry, Saket. You're barking up
I
the
love
wrong
the
tree, my friend.
enthusiasm though, but I don't know that one.
Okay, okay, not an issue. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, strengths based assessment. What is it? Which are the top ones? Give us the names of some free ones or not expensive ones.
Yeah.
And why are they important? And what are your favorite ones? I want to know everything.
Okay, so strength-based assessments are probably my favorite thing in this whole space. The most the most popular one that I know and that I've been working with in some level, whether it was personal discovery or in my coaching practice since 2007, I think, is Clifton Strengths, which used to be called Strengths Finder. It is a
Yes.
product from Gallup and it falls in the inexpensive bucket. So you can get your top 5 strengths from Clifton Strengths for $20. You can buy the
Ah,
book.
I did not know that.
It's cheap.
$20.
Top 5 for 20 bucks, and you can get the
Clifton.
full, like, the Clifton Strengths has 34 strengths themes, which they basically talk about strengths in terms of talents that you have spent effort developing. And everything that they do around strengths is understanding and identifying what you have so that you can develop them instead of wasting your time on all the stuff that you're weak at. So,
Okay, that's
um,
good to know. No
yeah,
matter where we are, our audience, I know I'm coming from, it doesn't, I don't want you to think I'm coming from privilege, but $20, no matter where you live, just order less pizza tonight. I mean, just do
yeah.
this.
And to learn about it, there is a book that's called Strengths Finder 2.0. And
Yes.
if you buy the book, it comes with a code. So you basically get the book
Perfect.
and the code for
Perfect.
20 bucks.
Perfect. Perfect. So
So
you're a fan of Clifton, clearly.
I'm a huge fan of Clifton. And
Why is that, Diana? Why? I know many people who are diehard fans of Clifton.
so for my well, there's something to it being the first one that I worked with. And so there's a longevity factor there. But I've had exposure to it for 13 or 14 years, and it is 20 or 30 years of research and continual development, and 25 or 30 million people have taken that. And Gallup, who owns Clifton Strengths, has invested a lot in continuing to understand what the impact of strengths are. So it's not a throwaway that you got on the internet and you don't know how you can actually deploy it. There's a lot that's really built around being able to take that information and use it in your life personally or use it with your teams. So I'm a huge fan of that. Another one that I hear about, and I've taken it before, so I'm 99% sure it's free, is Highfive.
Highfive is free. I mean,
Um,
you have to pay to download the report, but you get a immediate result when you take it. You copy paste it.
yeah,
But by the way, it's
free
again
inside.
not expensive. It's like
Yeah.
$30 or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not expensive. Even the top test in Clifton Strengths, like the top test to get all 34 themes in order, that's $50. And there's an add-on if you're a manager to assess like your top 10 strengths and how that plays into your management style. And it's like another 30 or $40. So you can get all that stuff for less than $150 if you want to. And
Okay.
High
Okay.
Five, the thing that I didn't like about High Five is I felt like I could game it. Like,
Really?
yeah, I felt like I could make that test say whatever I wanted it to say, which is the thing that, people that are good at understanding personality tests, I guess, can do. Maybe it's a secret skill that I have. I should put that in my LinkedIn skills area, hacking the personality test. But that one, I felt like there wasn't as much depth. I didn't feel like I got as much insight about myself as I did with Clifton Strengths. Although maybe if I spent more time with it, it would be a
Yeah.
different story. But I like strengths. I like the
Yeah.
theory of strengths because it makes so much sense to me. It constantly feels like we are being asked to we spend 80 or 90% of time in feedback meetings with our bosses or in performance reviews talking about what did you do wrong or what do you need
Yeah.
instead of saying, here's what you're great at and here's how we're going to try to leverage that.
It is so different. It is such a different vibe talking about that.
Yeah.
And I have some fantastic add-ons to that.
Lay
Um,
it on me.
where, yeah, I think Shelly put it in the comments that she was certified in Predictive Index. I think you talked about it as well. I've heard of UMAP. I've heard nothing but good things about UMAP. I'm connected with Kristen Sherry, and I know that she's certified
Okay.
in that. Have you tried that, Diana?
Oh, I did that. It's been a while, and
Hmm.
I didn't end up digging into it, but I like Kristen Sherry.
No, no, she's the
I
real
like
deal.
Kristen Sherry.
And I see some great names as well of people who are certified in that. Gabe, I appreciate that you're here and you're helping us a lot. And I have a question here, which is very interesting. And I also have an answer here from a comment from someone who's watching. So I love when conversations are happening.
I
And
do
then I
too.
want
I just wanna look at the comments all day.
I know.
It's
The party,
distracting.
I've been saying this for years. The party is always in the comments. Like you and I are like chopped liver today, clearly. But Diana, I want your take on it as well after we see the question and the answer. So Spruha is saying, wouldn't it be like, wouldn't having colleagues know your personality type make you more vulnerable? For example, I'm not type A. That means I'm maybe not as high performing, especially if they don't understand the nuances of type. And then I see a very interesting response from Barbara. It shouldn't matter. I found out that they actually helped me to lean into my strengths and turn my weaknesses into opportunities for growth. Which you got to read again, Spruha. This is what she just said. You got to go below the surface here.
Mhm.
People who use personality tests against you actually don't understand the purpose and lack emotional intelligence, maturity, and
Like the
leadership.
best. We didn't even have to say anything.
Barbara, we are already best friends. Like, no
I know.
one personality test is all encompassing. So, other than the fact that we have met a sister here, what do you think about this question?
Well, can you go back to the original question from Spruha
Yes.
real quick?
Yes.
So one of the things is I completely understand the concern of personality tests being weaponized.
Yes.
That's a fair concern, but
That's so
I don't
ugly,
think
man.
really.
Diana, that sounds ugly. Like taking it and just throwing it in your face. Yeah, because you are a intro. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, people weaponize introversion too, which drives me crazy because I'm an introvert, which no one believes because you do all the live streams and you like to
Which
be on.
means they don't understand the definition.
Yeah, they don't understand what introvert is anyway. But for me, setting aside people using your personality type as a club or something to beat you with or try to make you feel less than, which, as Barbara said, is not something we want to do. It's not bad to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
I mean, I always refer to Dr. Brene Brown as our
Hmm.
lady queen of courage and vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
And
Yes.
I've learned, and I have a crispy outer covering with a warm, gooey center myself that I'm trying to let the warm, gooey center out more as I age. But to me, vulnerability is about courage and it's about letting people in. And
Yeah.
whether you are the manager of a team or a peer on the team, showing vulnerability makes you real and it actually increases trust. So, that's maybe a whole nother topic for a whole nother day, but I just want people to realize, yes, there is vulnerability in sharing these things about yourself, but that's not necessarily bad.
It's not necessarily bad, and people who take advantage, Spruha, you just gotta stay away from them in, I
Yeah.
think, in every possible way. So that's a great point. And oh, Lori is here herself. Lori, I've been following you for a little while. Love that you're here. I love coaching people on their strengths. So Diana, you're obviously in the UMAP framework. Personality tests are only one piece of the puzzle. That's very true. What we're saying is it's not the only thing
Yes.
to focus on. I want to just focus on one thing that you said, what personality tests are and what they're not. And you said they're not a club. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate on that a little bit?
You should not be beating people over the head with them is one thing. So in this example, Spruha said she was made to feel like maybe she's not a high performer if she's not a type A. Well, that's ridiculous. Type A, like personality and performance are not necessarily the same thing. Your personality can play a role in your performance, especially if you don't understand it or you and your teammates and colleagues don't know how to navigate that. Those differences in personality can cause friction, but the problem isn't the personality. The problem is the friction that you've got to figure out how to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and
And that goes beyond all these tests.
yeah, for sure. And the other thing that people should realize is that personality tests should not be used to put people in a box. And
Yes.
this is something I was really glad
Yes.
that that Barbara joined, because we talked about this in the comments on LinkedIn earlier this week. We shouldn't be looking at these assessments as a way to eliminate people or call them bad or pigeonhole them. One thing that I get really upset about is career coaches that will do all kinds of assessments, and like there's some career coaches out there that all they do is give tests.
Yeah.
That's all they do, and then they come out and say like, well, we did strong interest in Myers-Briggs and this and that, and you're an introvert, so you can't go into sales and you should be a veterinarian, or like just stupid stuff like that. We should not be telling people that you can't be the profession that you want to be based on a personality test. We should not be telling people that they need to stay in a box,
Like,
because
we should not tell people that you're an introvert, you can't be successful. I'm so tired of this now.
ugh, it makes me crazy. And if
Oh
you
my
haven't had
God.
Daisy Simonis on your show yet, you need Daisy is helping introverted women supercharge social skills. So I'll link you guys up later. She talks about
Okay.
introversion a lot. But we shouldn't be using personality tests to put people in a box. We should be using them to help them understand themselves and to help people understand each other. One way I do see it used, and I just have done workshops on this with people, is particularly with Clifton Strengths, my favorite. I
Yes.
have seen people use it to figure out how can we compose a project team so that we have that right mix of talents. But that's not anywhere near the same as saying, well, you don't have this strength, so you can't do X. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes. And I want to get on that for a second because I see Erica's also up early like you, in the same time zone. So I
Hey,
appreciate you
Erica.
being here, Erica. Um, we interacted on a post. It just so happened to be yesterday on Erica's feed, and it was her post. And we talked about something that, the art of disagreeing
Hmm.
without being disagreeable, which I feel is becoming a lost art.
Correct.
Now we are reaching the point of the program where we might have some cursing involved. So, if you have children around, like I said at the start, please cover their ears. Or why are they? I mean, why are they
Why
watching a
are they
LinkedIn
listening
live?
to LinkedIn? It's okay.
And if you're squeamish, deal with it. Okay, there's worse things going on in the world. So, Diana, talk to us about what a personality test and strengths test can warn you about yourself and about other people, and what can it not do.
Okay, so I'm going to give an example of how I used my Clifton strengths to help propel my business forward and to understand something in my last corporate job before I went to business for myself. So Clifton Strengths has 34 themes, and they're divided into 4
Yes.
domains. The domains are strategic thinking, relationship building, influence, and execution.
Yes.
And what I had not looked at my test in a while, but I had a client that was a friend, and
Yes.
we'd been going through hers. And one day she was like, I showed you mine, you show me yours. So I pulled it out for the first time in a while, and I had like a thunderclap of understanding of 2 things. The first was why a major leadership shift at my last job had made me go from really happy to miserable with my leadership very fast. And it was because in 6 of my top 10 strengths are in strategic thinking, and 3 are in relationship building.
Mhm.
I had a boss that understood that and just let me lean into it, gave me assignments according to that, appreciated it, reinforced it. And then when he left the department, I reported to someone else that wanted me to shut up in color and just be an execution person. And that's not how to use me.
Yeah.
So that was an immediate understanding of one of the key reasons why that working relationship wasn't going to work. The other thing it helped me understand is why I was struggling with getting some things done in my business. So I coach and I talk to people and I network and I hang out in the comments like you and I have been talking about all morning. But I needed a freaking website, and I know enough technology to build a simple website, but it was that thing that I was avoiding or not getting done. And of course, that has cascading effects in a business like ours. And I recognized I just need to suck it up and realize that just because I can do something doesn't mean that I should.
Hmm.
So I hired a virtual assistant agency in the Philippines that I
Hmm.
love. Hello,
Hmm.
Louise Sandoval. And they started really helping me get my stuff together. And then a little bit later, I realized I still needed more help. So I hired a stateside project manager to just continue to help me propel forward. And I got all of that, not that understanding that that's what I needed to do in my business from my Clifton Strengths. It's not about, hiring or not hiring somebody or putting somebody in a box. I don't know the strengths of the people in the Philippines that work on my project. I just know they do a great job and I'm happy with them. So,
Okay, okay, that's interesting. And Diana, so going back to what we were talking about earlier, so Erica's post yesterday, we were
yeah,
talking
what
about
did
people
this do?
people bullying, right? People bullying and
Yeah,
calling. So there's a way to do that, saying, "Hey, this is wrong information. You're spreading misinformation. You're spreading lies, and this is going to hurt job
right.
seekers." Right? There's a way to say it. There's a way to respond. And so this is the part that I was talking about when we said, and you told me yesterday, the A word. So what is it that the personality test, like
Personality,
where is it limited?
personality tests cannot tell you if someone is an asshole.
I
They
hope you heard
cannot
that.
tell you
If
that.
you didn't hear that, just it cannot tell you if
Personality
someone is a
tests
douchebag.
cannot tell you if someone is an asshole. And the other thing I have to say about this, it's really important, is, mostly when we hear about the term narcissism, we'll hear people talking about how they divorced a narcissistic spouse, or maybe they had a parent that was narcissistic and that was very traumatic for them. But narcissism happens in the workplace too. And let me tell you, emotional intelligence is one of the things sometimes people want to have separate assessments to gauge, or it's wrapped up and included and as a factor in some of the other personality tests. And I'm here to tell you that there is no person that is better at emotional intelligence than a narcissist, because emotional intelligence is understanding emotions, understanding how to influence emotions, having self awareness over your emotions. A narcissist can do all of that as well or better as anyone else. They just don't use it for those positive ways that we would like our colleagues and friends and family to use it.
Yeah.
So if you are in a position where you are hiring, building teams, creating the list of assessments and things like that you're going to use in leadership development, and you're thinking that high emotional intelligence is something you need to test and encourage for, there is a dark side to that.
Yeah. No, I hear you completely. And I'm just gonna, so that was so useful. If you didn't hear, I'm gonna just do a quick recap. Watch out. People who have narcissistic tendencies are actually very intelligent, not just IQ, but also EQ, which we
EQ.
say is more difficult. They have that. That doesn't mean it's going to work out with them, whether they are your husband, your wife, your boss, your partner, whatever. Narcissists are actually very good at abusing that for their own
Yes.
benefit. So,
Yes.
if this is something that's ringing a bell, if this is something that's helping you, go ahead and push that like button, give us some encouragement. 7 in the morning for 7:33 in the morning for Diana. And if you're watching us on the replay, put hashtag replay. Lori writes something interesting. She's like, oh yeah, these tests are misused all the time. MBTI
Yes.
and this are not approved for hiring. And yet, and this is again a great example. Barbara says, yeah, actually I'm an introvert and I've been told not to be good, I'm not going to be good at sales. And I was the top 3 sales as a part-time employee at a restaurant. So much for that.
Yeah.
So much for that.
I feel like whatever, in addition to just generally not understanding introversion, I feel like any assessment that says that someone that's more introverted shouldn't be in sales
I'm
has
so
a
tired.
very poor understanding of how sales has evolved over the years. Because it's not just hard charging like the way
Yeah.
I remember my dad trying to buy a car when I was a kid. It is relationship based.
It has evolved. It is not the way it used to be. So many things have evolved in the last 50 years.
Yes.
And the thing is, a lot of us have this rosy-eyed thing that they ask me all these weird questions at the interview. Doesn't matter. Let me get the job. I'll change all of that thinking. No, you won't. You're knowingly getting into a situation where they think you need to be extroverted to be successful, extroverted to be in sales, extroverted to be in CEOs. That that company is sooner or later going down towards a disastrous path. And Varsha, you Google this, my friend. I think Clifton.com, very easy to find. Just
It's
Google
actually
it.
on Gallup.com, Varsha.
Gallup, not Clifton. Okay.
Gallup, if anybody could type that in the comments.
Yeah. Can somebody put it in the comments? GALLUP. And
Gallup.com.
even if you just write Clifton Strengths in Google, you'll
Yeah,
get to the right
you'll
link.
find it. They
Anyway.
have good
So
SEO.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. We're getting a little like these brain emojis. And Shelley's like the Eat, Sleep, Work, Repeat podcast has a recent episode on how to tell if your boss is a
Oh,
narcissist. That is very juicy little information, Shelley. Thank you so much for sharing. If anyone is interested, check that out. I have a lovely community here, Diana. And one friend of mine who's a coach in Finland says the fundamental question for me is this: for what purpose do you use any of these tests, and how well do you execute them? Do you really understand their scope and pros and cons? So I'm not sure if it's a question towards Diana, but it's a rhetorical thing. That's something you need to
I
know.
love
Any thoughts?
this. I actually want to talk a little bit about this one, if you
Yes.
don't mind. So I mentioned earlier, I have a business consulting client that likes the Colby. And I just learned, I never had known anything about the Colby test until I started working with him. But he has a really great process. He's a very small business, less than 10 people in his business, and he's made 2 hires in the last year. And what this client does is he partners with a Colby certified consultant. Since he's so little, he doesn't have an HR with trained coaches and all that stuff on his staff. He partners with a coach that is certified in this assessment that he has found useful in his business. And what they do is they have slotted it into the right spot in the hiring process. He doesn't use it as a screener. He uses it as information so that people can work together.
Yeah.
And they've designed what that should look like within his business and for what purpose it's being used. And I recently added with him the Clifton Strengths because they have that instinctual thing that Colby tells. And then we wanted to just do Clifton Strengths because they were curious about it, heard me talk about it. And now we're looking at those two together, that the team will understand them so that they can create mini project teams, or so that they can communicate better. It's not for screening. It's not for, oh, we got to fire someone because they don't have the right Colby, none of that kind of stuff. It's purely used to give vocabulary to behavior that's already in place, personalities and strengths that are already in place.
Yeah, perfect. So hopefully that is helpful to someone who's thinking about the use and the abuse of personality tests. When you are being interviewed as well, don't hesitate to ask these kind of questions. I think
Yeah.
they're good questions. And if you have any other questions, guys, come in the comments and ask, because
Yeah.
we have Diana here for a limited time. Lovely, interesting comments here. Yeah, just so many successful introverts. You do need boundaries, and so do extroverts. I mean, come on. I'm not a huge
Everyone
fan
needs
of
boundaries.
labels or labels all the time. And we're coming close to the end now. So Diana, talk to us about like um, is there one thing which is on strength based assessments that you wish you knew earlier in your career?
So I wish that I would have realized that they truly can be so applicable. I told that story earlier about how I figured out some holes in my business. I figured out some um, things that were gaps with a leadership change at a prior job. And whenever I first started taking some of the personality tests, it was almost like a curiosity. And I took a lot of them over the course of a few years, but I never really learned what that purpose was and how to apply it, even from a self-awareness perspective. It was just like, oh, that's cool. I'm a this on MBTI. I'm a that on Enneagram, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And now what I've realized is that by focusing on, just for my own personal development, I look at 2 different personality models or strengths models, and that's it. Like, I don't try to understand everything and apply everything. I'll take a test. If someone says, hey, try UMAP out and it costs $100 or less, I'll do it.
Exactly. It's
But I
worth it.
build my development around 2 so that I am getting a deeper understanding instead of trying to just know every single one.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that will really help us with is understanding a little bit more about your inner purpose, your inner,
Yes.
not the surface
Yeah.
why, like Tegan says, but our deeper why. And this is a great point here. Just, I mean, we're not sponsored. I mean, we don't have affiliate links. If this is something that interests you, just get the book on Clifton Strengths, which is by Gallup. And when you get the book, you'll get access to the test for free. So
Yeah.
it's something that will definitely help
And
you.
they upgrade the test. So for people, if there's anybody that's like, yeah, this code is for the top 5 and I'm interested in the big one, you can upgrade. Like Gallup will figure out how to take your money to give you whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's definitely going to help you. I totally agree with you, Daniel. It's a great way to create a common language and appreciation for others if you do it right.
Yeah.
And not like we were
I want
yeah.
to hit Tegan's question. Did you see her question? Diana, can you tell us more about this interview test? Is stealing wrong on a scale of 1 to 10? I would say in
Ah.
99.999% of circumstances, that being included in an interview is garbage.
Yeah, I mean, who's
It's
gonna
just
say yes,
garbage.
it's okay to steal? Like
Well,
who's gonna
what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out my ethics, but the thing is, ethics are a conversation. They're not something that you just pick a number out of 1 to 10.
Measure.
So that's a really, to me, unless there's something more that I'm missing, that just seems like a really bad type of thing to be including in a hiring
So
process.
since we're here right now, Diana, because this is a very interesting question. So measuring, it's very difficult, right? So let's say, and I say this again and again, so people give me a lot of hell for it, and I'm sure you'll agree. When we are interviewing with a company for a job, we have to remember again and again, we are interviewing them, they are interviewing us,
Yes,
because you are now in a, I don't remember, buyer's market, seller's market, whatever. Let's say you're selling your services, you're in a seller's market. There's going to be a lot, there already are more jobs than talent available, and companies
yes,
are bending over backwards. There's something called the war for talent, which has been going on even pre 2019, and
yep,
it's war now, like it's pure like blood.
it's insane.
So you're going to have a choice, right? In most economies, things are looking great. So many tech companies, so many startups, so many advanced industries. Everybody wants good people. So now, how do you figure out the other side when it comes to things like, let's say, ethics is important for me, or not working with a narcissist is important for me? Because, like we said earlier, we can't tell a lot of those things. But let's say I just came out of a narcissistic boss subordinate relationship and I have PTSD from it, right? Extreme
Yeah.
scenario. How do I figure that out when I'm interviewing with people in the company?
That is such a, that is probably something you could unpack for a whole entire hour on here. But here's what I think for any person that's had culture issues, of any kind. It could be that bad leadership that was narcissistic, that could be some other thing. This first thing is to sit and say, what is important to me? If you do
Mhm.
not walk into the situation understanding what your own values are and how important the alignment is, some people want to have alignment that's like the Venn diagram is two circles on top of each other. And other people, all they're concerned about is that the company has ethics that are not in direct conflict with theirs. And then there's everything in between. You need to understand what truly is necessary in order for you to be comfortable. Then you start doing reconnaissance, and you cannot just do this with the 3 people or the 4 people that they have you interview with. This is where pursuing fewer job opportunities where you can go deeper into understanding the opportunity is better. So um, a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm just going to look on Glassdoor and it's a 4.5 star company. What you need to do is, if there's sites like Glassdoor, you need to look deeply into the reviews and figure out what the reviews that actually have substance are saying. There is a thing that is so disgusting and unethical that companies will do, and that's if their Glassdoor rating starts to slip. They will do internal campaigns where they insist that they will bully people into basically going and giving 5-star reviews on Glassdoor. And
And do you know what they say, Diana? They say it's
this,
perfectly fine because everyone is doing it.
I don't care.
They
what
say that. I've
happens
heard it with my own eyes, and I was like, I'm not
it's
doing it.
despicable. People steal every day too, but am I going to steal? No. But what I'm saying is that is going on. You are absolutely correct. But the way to get deeper is to look at the reviews that have substantive, detailed comments. And those are the ones to pay attention to. So, for example, if you see a company where there's a whole bunch of negative reviews that just says this place sucks,
Yeah.
it could be that 500 people got laid off and they were bitter, and there's no other reason and there's no other problem. On the flip side, if all of the good ones say this is a great place to work, I love it here, that may be HR having done a campaign. But if you go and see the reviews that say, here's the issue, I came in, I thought my job was going to be this, the environment was like these details, and there's really information, then you can get a little more info. And then the other thing I really love to tell people to do is look for someone that is in a peer or maybe like one click up or down, and try to find someone like that on LinkedIn at the company and then just ask if they'll talk. So if you're a marketing coordinator,
Yeah.
you find a senior marketing coordinator at Acme Corporation where you're interviewing, send them a LinkedIn message and say, hey, I'm exploring opportunities at Acme Corporation. And what can you tell me about the culture there? What can you tell me about what it's like to work there?
And you can also be upfront and say, I'm actually interviewing there, and you don't have to hide that. And by the
Yeah.
way, another trick maybe could be, Diana, that you speak with people who have just left the company, because
Yes.
they
Within
don't
the last year.
they
Because
might be more forthcoming, right? And
yes.
have had some distance. So thank you, that is a very detailed answer. I know we could have talked an hour about just that, but
Yes.
that helps a lot. I would have like let you go, but we have some comments here. Can I just keep you a little bit longer?
Oh, I'm fine. I
Okay.
don't even know when you're supposed to end. I'll talk.
uh, Appreciate it. No, I thought 30-40 minutes, and it's early for you, but it's 46 minutes
I'm
and
up
we're
now. I
still
look
going.
good. My hair looks great. We're good.
We love you for it. We would keep you here for as long as needed. So Nigel has said something interesting. If you take a company assessment test, is the test meant just for the eyes of the interviewer, or only that occasion, or is it common for employers to use those results in the future? I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it from
I
you.
want to hear. Yeah, I'm super interested to hear what your observation is, Sonal. My,
I've done it, so they stay in the
yeah.
record.
Well, and they're staying. There's also, is it just for the interview and then put in a filing cabinet, or is it that they use it ongoing? Like it's part of the vocabulary. It's part of how teams develop.
It's a lot of work. It's a great point. It's a lot of work. And what I didn't do was proactively reach out to the person who ended up joining with us and working with us for a while. But what I would do is the ones who would reach out to me proactively instead, saying, "Hey, I spent 3 hours of my life doing that test
There's
with
one.
that company, and there was an in-person role play, all of that. Could I get the down? Could you send me the
Download.
downloaded report?" And I was like, yes, be my guest.
So, what a lot of people don't realize, and I'm sure you can speak even more too, because you worked in HR and I didn't. I was a hiring manager, but I didn't work in HR. But every company designs their hiring and onboarding process differently.
Yes.
And so, what the question that Nigel asks has to do with how the company designed their overall process. So, in my case, for my little tiny company of one plus some contractors that I
Yeah.
treat like family, because that's all I've got, what I did is in my hiring process, when I brought my part-time contract project manager on, I included strengths assessment in that for the finalists. And so I was able to see for my top 3 finalists, which I had an agency help me source, what their strengths were. And that way I could ask questions and I could basically have an open conversation about, in this role, I need someone that can help me with this. Can you help me with, can you tell me how you would do that? Because since I know that I'm weaker on execution and stronger on strategy, I needed to try to understand how can a person fill that hole.
Yes.
Now going forward, the person that I chose to hire, we talk about this regularly. So I will remind her, Danielle, my top 5 strengths are input learner, intellection, maximizer, and connectedness, which is awesome because it means I'm really smart and I learn stuff, but it also means I will overanalyze. So, can you help me with pulling myself out of,
Yes.
analysis paralysis?
And you're saving yourself a lot of
We
time for
use
this.
it ongoing as
Yes.
part of our vocabulary.
And
And
it doesn't become like, it's not a personality, it's not a finger pointing thing. It becomes
no,
issue focused, as opposed to the,
yes,
as just like, oh, it's,
yes,
you're always doing that, what is wrong with you? It's not about that it's more, I love that. And Nigel, I also want to add something, and anyone watching here as well, listen, when you guys, if and when you get rejected for roles, which happens to all of us, and you've invested time in all of these personality or psychometric or whatever, ask them, because you lose nothing. Ask them, even if you were rejected, if you could get the downloaded report. Now, the industry of psychometric personality, behavioral, all of these tests, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
yes,
So the company is paying a lot of money to this supplier, whether it's Clifton or whatever it is. And if like in my case, when I would hire these people and they would ask me, like I said, proactively, not only would I give them the results, downloaded results, but these results are the report is very difficult to interpret. Like, it might as well be Greek, and unless you're from Greece, you're like, what does this even mean? So if
yes,
it meant scheduling a call with the supplier for half an hour to help them interpret the results in a language they understand, the company's paying that kind of money anyway. So
yes.
if you don't ask, you don't get. We talk about salary negotiation and offer negotiation all the time, but I wanted to put this out there.
I
And
think
Diana,
that's a
you
great
look
point.
Diana,
That's a
you look great.
thank you, Tegan. I'm so glad to see you. I love that. She's another Central Time Zone person. People have
Yeah.
been asking
Oh,
earlier.
yeah. Sorry, you were saying something, Diana?
What I was going to say is that some companies may also appreciate it. So if you're going through a hiring process and you have done the test that they're about to make you do again within the last 6 months and have the results, you could also help the company that you're talking to about. Like, let's say if someone wanted to interview with me and they just took a Strengths Finder or a Clifton Strengths 2 months ago, I saved $50 if they're willing to share that with me. Now, if it's longer than 6 to 12 months, I might say,
Yeah.
let's do a new one. But
Yeah.
if you can give people the option,
Yeah.
you're acknowledging that this is a cost to the company. Even if they want you to do it again, it's still a really nice gesture.
It's a win-win. Honestly, you lose nothing by doing that. And
Yes.
Tegan, absolutely, if everyone is doing it, it's still wrong. And Bob left a little slimy little comment, which he's been in a situation where the company's encouraged ballot box stuffing on
I
glass.
feel like I need to take a shower whenever I see that kind of. It's just awful. It's so bad.
Wait, I feel like one of those salesmen on, like the US TV shows. But
But
wait,
wait,
there's
there's
more.
more.
There's more. I love the LinkedIn Live.
Oh,
Thank you for discussion. Often we are not sufficiently self aware. One of these
yes,
instruments can highlight an attribute we didn't realize. That's a very good point.
yes,
Relatedly,
that's true.
even to the extent we do recognize, we may lack the vocabulary to articulate it, right? And which is very useful in an interview scenario. And particularly when people ask, what are your weaknesses? They don't necessarily care about the answer. They care about, do you know what you're talking
Yes,
about?
that's true.
Because
Do you know
eventually it's part of the personality getting along type of thing.
they want to know they want to know, do you know? They don't want to know the fake BS thing that you pretend is a weakness but actually is a strength. I work too hard. No.
Yeah, I'm a perfectionist. Ah.
That's fake. Don't do that.
No, no, that's a great point. And Lee says, when I had a new manager, I let him know my top 5 strengths and how I thought I could be most effective. Like Lee, like he or she must have loved you, him, right away, because you are talking about saving a little bit of time. And I saw a very interesting question here, and I'm a little greedy. I'm not going to let you go yet because there was a question that I like, questions that how do you say it? Stir the pot a little bit.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah, my favorite as well. Now, Naveen says, don't you think personality tests can be an impediment in the creation of workplace
Oh,
diversity?
Naveen. I love that. It depends on how they're used. So all of these questions go back to it depends on how they're used. So I want to go back to something Sonal said very early in this live stream. So Sonal, you mentioned something about how fit is a dangerous term. And so we often hear people talk about cultural fit. So one of the big reasons why you don't just want to, pick the most impressive looking resume off the top is number one, anybody can write anything on a resume or hire someone to write anything on a resume. So maybe even the technical skills aren't right. But number two, people always say, well, I need to know if they fit.
Yeah.
And when we are trying to be conscious of diversity, equity, and inclusion, you want to look for culture add. That's the thing that I hear a lot of people
Yes.
talk about. And I'm not a DEI expert. I'm learning
Yes.
a lot about it because I do care very much about it. But it's not about culture fit, which is something that can pigeonhole us into a homogenous team. It is about culture add. And so that can be anything from hiring people of different religions or socioeconomic backgrounds. And diversity doesn't always look the way we think it does. I could see a person that looks almost exactly like me, but I grew up in my parents were married and I had two brothers and I got to go to college and graduate on time and all that kind of stuff. But if someone else grew up in foster care and had to scrap for 10 years and then they got their associate's degree, that's a whole different path. And so that still can be diversity.
Yeah.
So looking for add is what we're trying to do. When people use a personality test to try to look for fit, that's where we get into trouble.
That's where we get into trouble. So Naveen, if you don't do that,
right.
don't have this problem.
And you have your intent around rounding out the team and adding to the awesomeness that you already have, you're in much better shape. So when I made my hire, I was looking for someone that had more execution strengths than I did so that we can actually get some stuff done. But I didn't eliminate based on that. I basically was curious about it and I had conversations when interviewing to vet that, yes, the thing that's on the Gallup test seems like it's actually correct based on our conversations, but I didn't use it as a way to find someone else like me.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is fantastic. I'm getting such fantastic comments here saying, like, hey, not even a single person I've worked in HR ever told us this. Dude, this is why we have Super Chat Fridays. You have to come. And people are saying thank
Yes.
you. And Spruha, we are like our wires are crossing because we talked about weaknesses as well. And you can use strength assessment. And this is an interesting point with what Naveen just said and what you said, Diana. You can use it to find people that complement. Complement, I'm guessing with an E, not with an I, your strengths.
Yeah.
I'm sure you meant that. If you're an activator and you're good at starting projects, but not seeing them through, you need someone who's strong on that aspect because otherwise
Yes.
you're going to have a lot of starting projects,
Yes.
but incomplete.
And I'll say on this, I want to poke at this a little bit. So, Lori, I love that you brought that up, and I love that you raised activator, which is one of the 34 themes within Clifton Strengths. So it can be really overwhelming to try to understand 34 things in depth. That's why people, go and spend a lot of time and money and energy getting certified. So when I work with teams that are just lay people on employing Clifton Strengths for team composition on projects or whatnot, I focus them on the 4 domain areas because activator is in the execution domain. That's right. Or influence. I need more caffeine. But if you know what the 4 domains are and the makeup of the people, then you can look for people that are within the right domain. So I said strategic thinking. I have 6 things in strategic thinking in my top 10 and 0 things in execution. Maybe activator isn't the specific one I want. If I can just find someone that has a few in their top that are execution based, I'm going to be much closer to being able to get stuff done. So don't feel overwhelmed if you choose to go do Clifton Strengths assessments on your team and you're like, oh my gosh, there's no activators, we're in trouble. Odds are pretty good you got someone in there that has some execution in there or strategy or whatever it is that you're concerned about missing.
Okay, awesome. Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to explain that because I think that was really important.
It gets very overwhelming. It's way easier
It does. It
450
does.
than 34.
Baby steps. We take them in baby steps. It gets less overwhelming one step at a time. So if you're just joining us, we're about to finish. So I highly recommend you watch the replay. We
Yes.
covered a lot of ground. We talked about what is a personality test, what is it not, what is it supposed to be used for, what is it not supposed to be used for, how is it different from other stuff out there. And we also talked about what are the common ones. So I saw this question, Nigel. You talked about DISC, and we covered basically all of them, but sort of very briefly because we don't have that sort of time today. And then our focus today, the meat of our chat today, was about strengths based assessments. You know, the big ones. And Diana shared her favorite. We didn't even get to Enneagram.
Oh,
Oh, this is like I think we need to do a session one day only on your beloved Enneagram
I
because I
mean,
know.
if we do that, I have another person we might do. I don't know if you ever do little three-way conversation.
Or yeah, I have a better idea. Diana, I know that a little bird tells me that at some point you might get linked or you have LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, I
So
haven't
if
done
we're
it
gonna
yet.
do Enneagram on your LinkedIn Live, we're gonna come to you and we're gonna watch you because you're the expert on that. And then we talked about also, you know, what is the one thing that Diana wishes she knew a little bit more about strength-based testing beforehand, before like earlier part of the career. Take the Clifton, you know, just $20. You'll get a lot of, you know, information out of it. Like Bob said here, you're going to be able to use words to explain certain strengths and certain areas of improvement in a more professional way as opposed to I'm bad at this or I'm good at this, right? And we also said something interesting about narcissists, and what personality tests cannot do is they cannot tell you if someone is a douchebag because they tend to be people who are very high on EQ and yet are very good at abusing things. So I want to like last thing before I let you go, please follow Diana on LinkedIn if you don't already. You're going to find refreshing honesty in her posts. If you don't like refreshing honesty, I don't know why you're still here. But if you do, obviously, this is something that's attracting you in our conversation. And Diana will always call a spade, which is why one of the things I like about her and her website, dianaalt.com. And I want to ask you one last thing before you go. People who are listening today, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, whelmed, whatever it is, right? That's how what we said when we started. What is that one takeaway you want this person who's listening, who's watching us, to take away?
So, if anyone's ever been around a toddler and they just throw a fit and have a temper tantrum, the
Yes.
primary reason, other than not getting what they want, that they get upset and throw a fit is usually that they don't have the words to explain what's going on with them.
Yeah.
So all of these types of assessments, whichever one you choose, give
Yes.
you words. And so don't feel like you have to do all of them. Pick something that resonates with you so that you can have words to understand yourself.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just take the one that resonates with you and
Yeah.
make the most of it and learn a lot from it.
And I'm like I do, you know, I'm like you and I both work as career strategy coaches. We help people strategize their search or whatever, but I also just talk to people about this. So if there's someone that's perfectly happy, no intention of changing jobs, but they just want to go spend that $20 or that $50 and take a Clifton Strengths and then talk it through, I'm available to do that. And there's many other people that can do that as well. So, you know, just talking it through with someone to get vocabulary, if you don't happen to work in an organization that supports the test that you're interested in, then do that. So,
okay. Fantastic. All right. Fantastic, Diana. Thank you so much for your time and energy at like
great.
early morning. It's like past 8 a.m. So you've been up for an hour with us live. I tend not to, you know, let these go over an hour, but this is a topic that we have still barely scratched the surface.
Yes.
So
Nobody talks about it.
I'm sorry?
Nobody talks about it. We're all too
Yeah.
busy pretending that there's such a thing as an ATS compliant resume. You know,
That is so true. Focus on yourself before you focus on the material. material things
You don't
outside.
know what you want in a job. You could
Yeah,
have the best
yeah.
resume ever.
So if you're still watching us and you're staying till the end, really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for being with us on Friday. Give us lots of hearts and likes and applauses for Diana for being here early in the morning. And I shall catch you next week with Brendan Kumarasamy because we're going to be talking about how to answer the top interview questions in a way that is memorable. So with that said, thank you for being here. Have a lovely weekend. And thanks again, Diana.
Thanks.